Now, after having understood coordination, cooperation, let's try to understand public participation in governance and development. How public participate. Now we know the concepts, various perspectives of participation. We know public policy, what is public policy. We know what is governance. We know what is what we call development. So let's try to understand the importance of public participation in governance and development is recognized both by national, local and international organizations. They all understand that public participation in governance is the best form of development. Best form of development would happen when people participate in governance, because when they are participating in governance, there is a check and balance from the people's side. There is a ownership. They know that this particular development is for themselves, so they own that development project. They check. When participation is there, the wastage is very less. There is more transparency. They know that if we have only limited funds, only those very vital, important components of development would get priority. The other less important demand of the community would not get priority. That would be relegated to secondary position, or it would move backward. Now the essence of development is nothing but people's participation. There are many components that are involved in development, like money, material, resource, technology, and without these, development cannot happen. So public participation, people's participation increases the efficiency of development through whatever limited money, material, resource and technology is available. Now of all the social factors, human factors are the crucial elements. Public or people are pivotal, more important, around whom the entire development process is supposed to revolve. So that means development or sustainability is for whom? For the people. And people are the core component. They are the focus of all those activities. And when people are the focus and their participation is very important, and they participate in the decision making and resolving the conflicts or utilizing the resources, that means that particular action is sustainable. They would do it in such a way that the resource base is not what we call, they don't deplete the resource base, they don't overuse it, there is no wastage of resources. Only the optimum amount of resource is utilized, and the most needy person gets the resources for his utilization. Although the rich from a village or from the common pool of that resource base may not use it, but he knows that the most needy is the poorest of the poor. So he would allow them to utilize that resource base first. So that is the advantage of public participation in governance and utilization of resources, and that is the best form of to understand approaches to sustainability. Now, however, what we call the early phase of development era emphasized on when development started through government, the top-down approach to development was considered the best form of development, because they thought that ultimately the fruits of development would trickle down, and this trickle down theory was considered to be the best, that the benefits of a development project would gradually move to the very down to the poorest of the poor, or to the people at the bottom of the earth, and all the entire community would get the benefits of the development program. Now during this phase, the emphasis was on planning at the top, with focus on achieving higher growth rate you can call, or higher rate of output. This approach was based on the premise that centralized planning ensures higher growth, which automatically trickles down to the grassroots level, but it never happens. At the grassroots or the people at the bottom level, they rarely get the benefits of such development projects or such. Only in paper, only in theory, it happens that the growth in terms of data, not the development, but the what we call the growth rate, that increases, but the development remains at the same level. The benefits of the development does not reach to the people. So this top-down approach, which was initiated early with a philosophy or understanding that with the trickle-down theory it will benefit, did not do much benefit to the community. Hence, public participation in governance and development is the best form where the resources are shared, decisions are shared, there is transparency, they know that at what level the project has reached, who are the beneficiaries, who it is going to benefit whom. Further, if we move, let's try to understand that participation as a concept and strategy of development is an outcome of what we call profound disillusionment with established development strategy in post-industrial revolution area. It started during that time that the top-down approach and the decision were done that participation concept and strategy of development, after seeing the poor result of those development projects, it was decided that without their participation, the developmental projects would not get the optimum result. Now, the experiences of 1960s and 70s have further demonstrated the fundamental weakness of this top-down approach, where the gross national product focused growth-oriented, growth-centered strategy of development and the professional expertise of modern technology. The origin of participatory approach to development is based on the failure of growth-centered approach to achieve all-round development. Now, this particular phenomenon was observed across the countries, and international agencies like UN, UNDP, Asian Development Bank, FAO, they hotly debated the feasibility of this model, and ultimately in the 60s, what we heard at that time, the Nobel laureate Gunnar Myrdal, he urged and he suggested that to the government that their economies actively adopt social policies that enhanced people's welfare and participation and not the growth model. After that, there was a what we call paradigm shift in the concept of development, in the understanding of in the bringing of people's participation, public involvement in governance and development. Now, what are the various role of people's participation? Again, according to FAO, because they took the lead and they have documented and they have emphasized that role of people's participation in governance and development, according to them, these are the following roles. The first is that participation by information, a unilateral means of providing information to people without seeking their response. That means flow of information, not one way. Just take information from the people, and top-down approach implementation would not yield the result. So it has to be two-way process where the information comes from the people and they are also involved in decision making. Then consultation. People participate by being consulted. They are consulted and decision is done at another level by another group of people or decision maker. So this would also not yield a very good result of development project. So that means consultation of people in decision making is very important. For whom that project has been designed, if they participate, if they are consulted, that in what way this project is going to benefit, this particular decision is going to benefit, if that is there, so that would yield a better output. Then joint planning. People participate in joint planning, analysis and formulations of new methods. Local groups control local decisions and hence have a stake in decision. So joint planning is again very important. This particular role of joint planning is very important for the sustainability of a resource base or utilization or a development project. Decision making, when consensus is acted upon through collective decision. This marks the initiative of shared responsibilities for outcome that may result. And lastly, empowerment, the ultimate objective of participation, wherein the local community has the right and capability to have a say in decision making. That means you are empowering the people in decision making. They are just not consulted, they are not a joint planning, they are not participating in information giving, but they have been empowered. So that is the best form of people's participation. Now before I move further, it is very important to understand the role of government in this process, entire process, and evolution of participation, the Indian governance system, how it has evolved over a period of time. And Panchayati Raj system is the best form of people's participation and best form of what we call, since we are discussing approaches to sustainable development. So this Panchayati Raj, what we call the Panchayati Raj has given a constitutional obligations to these institutions, to the rural people. Now, this is the best form of people's participation in decision making. So, the importance of people's role in overall development framework is well reflected. Immediately after independence, various what we called committees were formed, like Balwant Rai Committee in 1957, that was set up to study the problems and suggest ways to implement schemes of Panchayati Raj. See, Panchayati Raj was, although implemented, the bill was passed in 92 and 93 it was implemented, but this process began in 1957, and Balwant Rai Mehta Committee suggested first time in 1957 how to evolve a system where people, a mechanism, an institution where people participate in decision making and deciding development programs for their village. After that, Ashok Mehta Committee in 1977 to suggest measures to revitalize this PRI, Panchayati Raj institution. So it was going on slowly, and then 1984 Hanumant Rao Committee suggested methodologies for at district level. So at various level, various inputs, various committees suggested. After that, GVK Rao Committee in 1985, they studied the administrative arrangement, that what kind of administrative arrangements would be there for rural development programs which are already in force, which are already initiated, how they would become a part of PRI, Panchayati Raj institution. Then 64th Constitutional Amendment in 1989 to set up Panchayati Raj, this was done in every state, but this could not be passed in Raj Sabha because they had not, some political problem was there, either number or some questions were raised by the Raj Sabha and it was sent back. Finally, in 1992, 73, 93, 73rd and 74th, these two constitutional amendments are very important. These constitutional obligations to set up Panchayati Raj institutions in rural Indian states. Now, what are the constitutional obligations? To hold elections with provision for reservation and devolution of power. Devolution of power means power top-down approach where decision is done at the state capital or the country's capital or the district headquarters, that won't be there. Power would go to the people, then to the nearest of institution where people can be involved. So that is the devolution of power. Administrative and financial power to the rural local bodies. They were given administrative and financial power. So devolution of funds, devolution of what we call the functionaries who were in the state capital or district headquarters, they were moved from their functionaries to the village level. So the development activity came very near to the people. So this is very important component, how evolution of what we call people's participation in Indian governance. Now as a result of this, what happened? Let's try to understand. Although, see, when we are understanding approaches to sustainable development, these are parallel things that are happening. One because of the government initiative and one being in a resource management either because of local institution, informal organization, customary laws of a tribal groups, but simultaneously it is happening. So the Gram Sabha and people's participation, what happened because of 1992-93, that PRI institution when they implemented, the setting up of a Gram Sabha at village level to strengthen the people's direct participation in village affairs. And the Gram Sabha has been set up in each village consisting of all members of the village who are eligible to vote in the election. Gram Sabha is empowered to look after all the developmental issues of village and has binding duty to discuss them in meetings to obtain consensus of its members. Then Gram Sabha is recognized as Assembly of Panchayati Raj. That is the body where all the people of the village who have the right to vote are the members. They elect members to this August gathering, the Panchayat Raj Gram Sabha, and the quorum of this meeting of Gram Sabha shall be when there is at least 1/10 of the total members are present, and the total members of the Gram Sabha, at least 40% of that should be women. So that means the downtrodden, the women, their voices have been included for their participation in decision making. Similarly, in 1992, the 74th Constitutional Amendment Act, they gave urban local bodies a similar power. They provided for creation of urban local bodies for wider participation of people in development of urban area. Like in the Panchayati Raj institution in the village, in urban local bodies came for the development of urban areas. It created a viable municipal bodies in urban areas which represented the people of municipality. Municipalities were to have wards within their territorial jurisdiction, and periodic election for the members of these ward members are to be directly elected by the people. However, the ward committee and municipalities have not been adequately developed into the institutions like the village panchayat, that it has not served the purpose, it has not included the people as much as it has happened in the rural areas. Urban decentralization has not matured to the extent it has been done in the rural areas. Our cities and towns do not have bottom-up structure and create more proximity between citizens and their urban local government. So that means the gap has narrowed between decision, between people's requirement and the developmental project. When this kind of participation has happened because of initiative, because of constitutional provisions that has provided that has really empowered the people, so what we call the approaches to sustainability, because of increase, this has led to the increase in people's participation in the decision making. Let's try to understand what are the various participatory development role of people, participatory development communication. The only way by which the grievances, demand of the people and the community can be projected, can be brought to the eyes of the decision maker is through communication. So the role of communication is very important. Let's try to understand what is development communication, participatory development communication. Now that involves communicating about the development plans, participating and research actions, and defines the role of research teams and practitioners in using communication to facilitate community participation. That means the way the grievances or the requirement or the demand of a particular community or the target group is communicated. So that is very important first step of participation. Participatory development communication is planned actively or activity is based on one hand participatory process and on the other hand media and interpersonal communication, which facilitates a dialogue among different stakeholders around a common development problem. That means if there are 6-7 problems, they come down, that is narrowed down to the most important problem through this dialogue, through this communication. And here the stakeholders are community members, the active groups, local authorities and NGOs play a very vital role in this. Now communication is an essential part of participatory research development, starting from the way to approach a local community, the attitude to adopt in interacting with community members, and the way to understand and discuss issues, the way to collect and share information, all involve ways of establishing communication skill, communication with the people. So that means role of participatory development communication is equally important. Now in delivering the output of this communication, there are certain approaches in implementing communication strategies. What are these approaches? The methodological approach for implementing communication strategies can be achieved in moderating discussions. If there is more discussion with the target groups, between the people and with the decision makers and the policy implementers, it will yield better result. It will communicate the most important requirement of a particular project, that what is the most important requirement first, and it also prioritizes for the development agencies that what is the most important which should be targeted, which should be addressed first. So moderating discussion. Then formatting and shaping information. Information which is collected from the stakeholders, from the people, that has to be formatted, that has to be put in a particular order in order to prioritize, as I said earlier, that what are the priorities of development. So that shaping is done by either by the people themselves through discussion or by the agencies which are involved. They narrow down. Then they encouraging and organizing women's participation. This is very important because their participation brings different set of requirement, set of demands for development project, different issues. The issues of male folks and women folks are too different. Although they target for the development of the village, but the priority is different, their concept is different, their understanding is different. Women folks are more firmly footed on the ground and they start with the available resources and they try to build up upon that. Whereas the male folks, it has been seen by various agencies that male folks want external input, either new technology or lot of money or training to the people. They want impart, the training is imparted to the stakeholders, to the people, or new machinery is brought, introduced. So their requirement involves lot of money. Whereas the women folk of the community, of the village, or they start from the existing practices, existing base, and more firmly footed, and their decision, their activity, their suggestion is more sustainable, more participatory, and they communicate better. Discussion and debate. After gathering information, demand and requirement from different stakeholders, from different group of people, there is a discussion and debate that how to prioritize, which are the ones which is more scientific, which should be taken up first. So these are the approaches. Then focused group discussion on certain issues of technicalities where more understanding is to be developed for the community or for the development projects. Focused group discussion is held by the specialized person or by the village people themselves, and then after that a decision is reached. PRA technique is very important tool where participatory research appraisal is done and they decide, people map their own resource base, they map their own development programs, they map, and then they also prioritize that what they want first. Similarly, visits, tours, workshop, exhibition, if people and stakeholders are made to visit different resource base, different countries, different geographical areas, and they are made to view and see the way different communities are managing their resources, they are developing, the way they are managing, they are prospering in different localities under different geographical conditions with different kind of resource base. That gives them an idea to modify, to enhance, to adjust their own development program. And role of rural radio is equally very important. Now before I conclude, let's try to recapitulate that what all we have discussed. And today we have discussed in detail various forms of participation. What is participation? How participation has evolved? What is the role of people's participation? What are the different perspectives of participation? Then what is the public policy? How public policy is reached? How public policies are formed? What is public policy? And how development project, how public policy is implemented into a development project. And if these three components are done, so this is the best form, best approach to sustainability, that how a development project for the community, by the community, is done on the ground at the resource base with the inputs from science and technology and policy makers, stakeholders, different stakeholders, NGOs and private organizations. Thank you very much. I hope students, I have delivered, I have made clear the role and importance of public policy in planning and development. Thank you very much.